I'm Brian V, and this is Why We Work. And I have a great man here who's very patient and kind, Mr. Colin Morgan. Thank you for coming on today.
Brian, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You are my first interview of a person that I do not know. I looked up on your website. You and I met on LinkedIn, as I was saying to a moment ago. You're the first person that I've met, and it's through LinkedIn. So I think that's what little I know of that website and the value it has for people who, being a podcast about work, is a great place for people to find other people in their realm of employment or even new things that they're trying to get into. Can you, one, tell me a little bit about yourself, but two, your experience with LinkedIn?
Sure. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a former professional golfer turned entrepreneur, started the Daily Grind podcast just over 2 years ago now, coming up to 3 years in a few months. Built the show from nothing, zero following to has over 3.5 million listens, over 15,000 listens an episode. I'm also the host, recently started this year, of a golf podcast called Sunday Red. It's now the #1 golf podcast in Canada. We get a chance to speak with amazing professional golfers and people in golf, whom many of you know if you're into sports. So I'm just blessed to be able to do this for a living. And what I do is I help fast growing companies implement a podcast to build brand and make money. So that's what I do for work. And, to your question about LinkedIn, I know a bunch of people that are all in with LinkedIn right now, and they're killing it. They're doing amazing. And it's one of those hidden platforms, maybe like Facebook 8-10 years ago. That's the way they kind of say it. It's very undervalued, and you have a chance to jump in there at a very kind of early time, even though LinkedIn is established, and you have an awesome chance to build connections and brands and get people on your podcast, whether you want to do that or you're trying to grow your business or meet new people.
Mine is the facial hair. I think you're pretty young, so I think you're pretty well established now with some of the things I've read and what you just said. Bring us back, Colin. What
Mm-hmm.
what what was some of your first type of work, or even, and also how you got into golf?
Yeah, I was sports from a very, very early age. So how I got into golf is I was into hockey. I grew up here in Canada. Hockey was big for me in the winters, golf in the summers, also big in tennis, any racket sport, any sport I was big in. But I made a decision in my sophomore year, or in Canada, that's grade 10 in high school, that I was going to go all in on golf, get a scholarship, turn professional. And that's what I did. And then I kind of got to a point where I kind of lost that passion. I had to transition to something else. I've always kind of been in the golf industry. So I started out in a back shop. I worked my way up, and my brother was running a food and beverage department. So it got me into serving and bartending. I did that for years, loved it, had a lot of fun. Ended up running a golf course for a point, a hotel for a point. I tried international real estate. I tried an e-commerce business. I tried my own golf business where I was teaching golf online, and I almost opened my own car dealership. I did all that in the span of about 3, 4, 5 years, and none of it worked. But none of it
So,
worked.
like, I'm from Canada too, and I believe you're from
Mm-hmm.
Ontario, and I'm from
Yep.
Nouvelle-Écosse on the Nova Scotia side. I have some pretty good friends who are athletes. So if you're a good athlete, and you were obviously a pretty good athlete to make it to nearing your dream or your wish,
Mm-hmm.
where did that determination come from in the drive to be an athlete? Or where you said you started as a kid, so is that coming
Yep.
from parents? Is that coming from a brother? Or is that coming from just watching whatever NHL hockey games or some PGA
Probably all
events?
of it. I grew up a kid. My brother was 7 years older. My sister is 9 years older. So I wasn't someone who was watching cartoons. I was watching Sports Center when I woke up when I was 4 or 5 years old. So that's what my brother loved to do. It's my dad loved. I played road hockey and golf with my brother pretty much every single day growing up. So that kind of built my love, and it made me grow up quickly, because if you're going to go play with kids 7 years older than you better be tough, and you better get stuck in and learn quickly. And That's what I did. It was just something that I picked up sports very quickly. It came naturally to me. It kind of is the reason why I'm not the best teacher of any sport, because I can't really explain what I'm doing. It just
Hmm.
sort of happens. But I loved it, and I still do. That's why I do what I do now. But sports just came naturally to me, and I thought that that was something that I just wanted to pursue wholeheartedly, and I did.
How did you, because, and I don't come from the same, but I have, like I said, friends who
Hmm.
have the same mentality of knowing the hard work pays off. Were you able at a young age to realize this will work if I keep doing it? Or was there someone pushing, driving you, saying, because I have children, I'm not sure about you,
Yeah.
but I have to remind my children, whatever, do your homework or,
Hmm.
practice this or do that, because in the end, so I know I'm there. And while I see with my older child, she's starting to get it. And then she's, violin, for instance, she'll pick it up and go play on her own without me, like to the point where I'm like, okay,
That's
no
great.
violin right now. So was there something like that? Or did you have that desire of learning, finding something, mastering it, and then pursuing it even further?
When I think when I was that age, I just really loved it. So I would just, that's all I ever thought about. It's all I ever wanted to do. So it's all I ever did, like I think with, parents ask me nowadays, and I'll even work with and speak to some university students, is when you're that age, you can tell if a kid is really enjoying something, because
Hmm.
they do it, like you said, when you don't tell them to do it.
Yeah.
Instead of watching TV or playing a video game, they're on the driveway shooting balls or shooting pucks or practicing their putting. Like, they're going to show you what they really enjoy and love to do. And once they do that, I mean, my parents were gracious enough to keep putting me in opportunities to get better. They saw that I really love sports, and they made sure that I was in the right types of events that I needed to be. I was where I needed to be. I had the right equipment, and they wouldn't have done that. And they told me they wouldn't have done that if I didn't show the drive myself. So I think that that's super important, where you can try to force it, but there will be a point where I grew up where kids were great from, 8 to 15. And then there's a burnout
They lost
because
the
they're sick.
drive.
Yeah, but they never had a drive.
Yeah.
They were just forced to do it. And then they're at
Mhm.
an age where they realize they don't have to. So they don't. So just look at what your kid's doing. If he's enjoying it, keep putting him opportunities to do it. But it's something that you can never force something. You probably learned that too, right? That you can't force someone to be someone that they're not. If they're not an
Yeah.
athlete, they're never going to be an athlete. If they're not an entrepreneur, you can develop that, but it's difficult to try to do that unless they're showing that they really want to do it.
So fast forwarding, because you mentioned some jobs and things that you've done, where did you develop this entrepreneur and not develop? So I think it's probably something that you've always done, and you mentioned blessed, or it's maybe just in your genes. But
Yeah.
when did you first pursue this goal of I'm going to do X number of things and to infinity until I get something right? Because there's a drive in that some people, I know people, family, friends that would have given up, wouldn't even have, left the parking lot
For sure.
and or would have given up after the first try or the second try and would have been done. But you're talking a whole slew of things you've tried and admittedly failed.
Yep.
What was driving you to keep on going? Because I mean, you probably know you're a podcaster and you're talking to lots of people, and I'd like to talk to you about some of the people that you interview and their drive, what seems to make them successful. But
Hmm.
what is it you're finding where people, what separates the people who give up so easily and someone like yourself who's, not letting anything knock you down?
Yeah, I think I always had a drive. First of all, my parents were both entrepreneurs. So
Okay.
I saw how I grew up and how they were always around. They showed up at, my dad always showed up at every sporting event. I was able to do what I wanted to do. Like, they loved what they did, they loved their work. So I always knew from at least a young age, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew what I didn't want to do. So I knew I didn't want to have a normal job, quote unquote. Not that
Okay.
I don't respect people
Yep,
that do, because it's
absolutely.
important and you have to
Yep.
do it. And I've had it before, but I just didn't see that for myself. So knowing that, I just had a drive to not be in that position. And through learning from my parents, learning from my father, uh, my internal drive of just trying things. I think that when you try and you fail, at least when I look back and I look at all the things that I did and all the things that didn't work, I was doing them for the wrong reason. And I think a lot of people, especially that listen to my podcast, especially that are listening to this, you're going to try a whole bunch of stuff because you see a friend do it and it worked for them.
Mm-hmm.
Or you see on Instagram someone and you're like, wow, they're making a bunch of money on this online store. Like, looks pretty easy. Why don't I do it? If you don't love what you do, it's really difficult to wake up and put in the grind work. Like, it's
Absolutely.
difficult when you're in the first few months and you're making no money and no one's listening and no one's buying from you and no one's paying attention. And every post gets one like and it's your hashtags. Like, that sucks. That's hard. But if you just push through it, the only way you can push through it is if you're truly enjoying what you do. You wake up and you're like, wow, like, this is awesome. How lucky is it that we get to sit here on Friday at 10 a.m. my time? And like, this is considered work. It's wild, but this is the reality of what it is. And it's something that at the beginning, I wasn't even close to this. And you know what? Still now, I still have a whole bunch I want to do, but it's pretty cool.
Do you know, like, as you mentioned, more like the social media side, but I think it goes deeper than that, of the wrong motivations. Do you know what may have been your core wrong or misguided motivation, opposed to, okay, I want to get this many likes on here? Those are understandable, and maybe more temptations of like just getting in this thing. It's kind of new, like LinkedIn or something. Like, okay, this guy
Yeah.
has like 500 followers, or this one has 1 million connections, I guess you would say. But was there initially, when you started not even the podcast, but the drive to entrepreneurship, just you might have had the wrong motivation? Although in hindsight, you use all those experiences to get you where you are, and you'll use them for the rest of your life. But was there a wrong
Totally.
motivation?
Big time money. It was all money. Like, I was just looking for the quick, like, oh, if I do this, I'm going to make, 100 grand really
What
fast.
was the, sorry, what did you want about the money? Was it like someone else had a lot of it? I mean, in specifically, you were like, I'm young, this is what I'm supposed to do, or go to jail or do drugs or something. I got to pick an avenue. What was it, the thing about money?
You know what? I think it's natural with everyone. I think I got to a certain age, especially, I was grinding through golf. So I was bartending at night, playing golf during the day. Like, every amount of money went into my next tournament, where I was going to stay that week, my travel. It was just a tough grind. And I feel like after, it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I want to be rich because I just like, I'm like, I see people making money. I'm like, I need to make money. I guess
Yeah,
that's what I need to do now.
yeah.
Like, I was confused, and money's important. Don't get me wrong. But like, that was my main. I'm like, I just need to make money. I don't care how I do it. Like, honestly, I didn't care how dirty it was.
Yeah.
Like, I just wanted to make money.
When did that shift happen? Or how did that happen? What rotated or flipped your leaf to say, well, maybe I'm doing this for the wrong reasons, to the point where you're able to reflect on it and say that was the wrong reason?
Yeah, you know what? I don't think that there was like a moment in
Yeah.
time, but I do think that there was a point where a deal for a used car dealership went through. I was kind of sitting back. I'm like, another thing,
Yeah.
like, another thing failed. Here we go. And I was someone who, I was angry because
Sorry,
life didn't.
were you accountable to anyone, or is it just you sitting on your chair saying, I failed again? Or are you also answering to, it's all right, you can go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're good. I
Is
got to
there
put it on
someone that
silent.
you are accountable to, or is it you're taking all of that weight upon yourself? Like, this
Oh,
is
it's just solely
another
me.
solely you.
Yeah,
So you're
yeah.
sitting
It's
back
just like
saying, you're kicking yourself.
kicking myself internally, confused. But and because I was angry about how life didn't work out the way I thought it was
Yeah.
with golf, like, I always thought like people were coming to get me. I like had a chip on my shoulder, and that didn't play well. And I thought I knew everything. So as I went through a period of say self-development, people
Yeah.
call it, where I'm reading and listening to things, I thought
Yeah.
because I was doing those things, I was smarter than other people. And that was like such a learning lesson for me. Like when you think that you know more than other people, what the one thing I've realized from interviewing amazing people is the people that have quote unquote made it, or visually you know them the most, they're the ones who want to learn from you more than
Mm,
anybody. Even when they come on your show, like they're just focused on like, what's he doing? What are you doing? How can, how can that maybe benefit what I
I'm
have
doing.
going on? How can I implement something that he's doing really well? And the minute I started to like not think that I knew everything, and I could go to my father who had been there before and who has done it and who's been through it and ask him for help, like that's really when things started to turn around for me. So if there was a turning point, is when my own selfish ass, I started to become
Absolutely.
a little, instead of being a brat, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't know everything.
And the burden lifts off your shoulders, does it not? Of
Big time.
having to play that role,
Oh,
having
it's
to be
tough.
the know-it-all, and justifying every single thing you've ever said and not backing down.
It's true, and it sucks. Like I know there's a ton of people, like when you try something and it doesn't work, when you're first doing it, there's nothing, at least for me, there's nothing in my head that's like, this isn't going to work. So like I used to tell people all the time, like, oh, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. And then like 2 months later, they see me. They're like, you still doing that? I'm like, nah, I got something new on the go now.
But this is gonna work. This is gonna
Yeah. They're
work.
like, what is this guy doing? But that was my mentality at the time. I think I was, like I said, I think I was just young and immature.
Do you speak to people like that now? Do you notice like, okay, this guy's just like me, or this girl's just like me, and they have a list of things they're going to do. They're gonna
Oh,
do
big
them. They're
time.
gonna and how do you approach them?
You know what?
If it's a conversation and they're coming up to you, or
Yeah. Yeah, I like how you frame that, because if I
opposed
notice,
to trying to fix the whole world. Hey, hey,
yeah,
hey,
I
that's
am never
not gonna work
someone. I am never someone that is going to jump in and tell someone that what they're doing is
randomly.
wrong.
Yeah.
Like even if I know, like, you know what, that's like I've done it. So like, why can I judge? I'm
Yeah.
like, you're going to go and you're going to learn. Maybe it even works. Like I don't know.
Hmm.
All I know is what I've been through, and I think that just having the right attitude is super important. Like having the right attitude of where you are in the right headspace, especially when you're working on your own or you're trying to do something, you have to have it in between these two ears. Like if it can go sometimes too.
You you make a good point. And are you able to look back at the point where you were, maybe, if you will, scatterbrained, or all over
Hmm.
the place, and see people who are actually really gracious to you and not so judgmental, and just let you play your life out, and step back, but was always there that you could rely on and trust? Are you able to find people in your life that, wow, they knew I was an idiot? No, you might not use those words, but I would, very similar, and say, wow, you know what? They were kind enough to not to throw their opinion or judgment in what I was trying to do, but they were always a solid rock there behind me all the way.
Yeah, few and far between,
Hmm.
but I'm lucky to have those people for sure, because it is important, where you just need someone that you can go to, or because it's already difficult enough when you're trying something. It's already difficult enough for yourself, and then to back that on with other people, like, maybe you should do this or do it this way. It's like you feel like everything's coming at you at once for a point, even though they're coming from a place of helping. And when
Hmm.
you realize that, it takes a burden off your back. Like they're actually just trying to come from a place of love and help. They just don't know how, because they've never done it before, right? Like if someone's never been through what you're going through, it's difficult to offer an opinion or offer judgment. Um, I have no idea where you've been in your life, right? I have no idea what you're doing now. I can't judge.
Hmm.
All I know is like, maybe I can help in a very small way. And I am a big believer in treating everyone with respect, because it doesn't matter where you are right now. You have
Hmm.
no idea where that person is going to be in 10, 15, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And if you were ever a dick, it's going to bite you in the ass. And if you're just a nice person, it will come back for you, and people will do nice things back for you.
It's like that saying that says, "Be careful who you piss off on the way up, because you're surely to see them
It is
later."
a very fine line. It's like people have this scale in life of like, oh, I make this amount of money, so I'm more important than my brother or my uncle or my friend, or I'm up here and he's down here. It's almost like based on where you are money wise or career wise, you like scale yourself and you think you're better. But those scales can tip.
They certainly
Those
do.
it can do that very quickly. It can do it very, very quickly. So you got to be very careful and just be a nice person. Like if
Grateful.
you're nice and you're
Yeah.
helpful and you're grateful, and one of the words that always sticks to my mind is like blissfully dissatisfied. You're very happy and content with where
Hmm.
you are, but you're driven for more. And I
Yeah.
think that's like I'm not there, but like that's
And
what you work
hopeful too,
towards.
right? And hopeful.
Exactly.
What would you
Exactly.
say? I mean, looking at between you and I talking, but I know people that are distraught. I think some people might be using COVID more as an excuse, or COVID could be something that's just exposing their own insecurities, their own difficulties. They were there before, but now they're compounded that much more. How do you address people, maybe even successful people that you're dealing with on a regular basis, of their own insecurities to work, to grind it out, to keep going?
Like how am I
Do you
speaking to those
do you
people?
yeah, do you are you offering encouragement to these people, and how would you do it to listeners today, of the ones that I know, some people that I know are having a great difficulty looking for work, trying to find
Hmm.
work. Um, some people have had the same job or have never had a job, and they're worried to switch professions, to try something different. They're dissatisfied with their job, so they're scared to go into something different. What would you suggest to people in just starting to work, or to getting their head off? So you mentioned that earlier, getting your head off the pillow and grinding
Yeah.
it out.
I think it starts internally. Like I think it starts at the moment where you're like sick of where you are. And if you're sick of where you are, you have to look and say that what I have done to this point has not worked. Whether it's the way I think, whether it's the actions that I have, the habits that I have, how I wake up in the morning, everything needs to change. And you can do that through small little habits. You can start to recreate and reinvent yourself by doing little small things. But it starts with like being unhappy with where you are and then working towards that. There's some people that are like, this sucks, like we're in COVID and like they are, but if they got their job back tomorrow, they'd be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they just went back to where they were
Yeah.
and did the exact same thing before it started, they'd be good. And like it's hard to motivate someone that is thinking in that way,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because that's what they want, and that's okay. Not everyone wants to do the next thing. Not everyone wants to start their own business. Not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, even though they may say it.
Mm-hmm.
It's dealt with in your actions. If you want something different, you're like, I'm sick of this. I need to do something that I love. I'm like done with what I'm doing. If you get to that point, I believe that you can start to work towards it. It's difficult when you're not at that point, I believe, because always there's a fallback. People are 1 foot in, 1 foot out,
Do you
and then it doesn't
find
work and they go back.
with that fallback, do you find people are falling back in insecurities and self-doubt, or is it to blame other people or something else? Is there a lot of blame that goes on with people, that even though there might be justifiable reasons for them to be upset with someone else, but they use those as a crutch, we would say,
Hmm.
um, to to justify the reason why they're not being productive in whatever way that would be good for them?
I think each person is different. I think each person may have a combination of all of those, one of those, two of those. Like individually, people are different, but I'm not saying like you need to like quit your job
Yeah.
to do it. Like but if you're like in your head, you're like, I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm going to be smart about how I'm going to work towards something new.
And you're
Like
already checked out anyway. So
that's what you need. Like
yeah,
you need to know that, you know what, I'm going to stay here until I get this figured out, but I'm not going to be here for very long. And like, just have that mentality and continue to work and work. And it may take a while, but if it takes 3 years, say it takes 5 years, if in 5 years you knew you were doing something that you love, maybe you're
mhm,
making more money, it gave you freedom, would you go through dirt for 5 years to get that for the rest of your life? I think a lot of people would,
absolutely.
but a lot of people will say they will,
Hmm.
but when they actually are going through it, not a lot of people have the drive and the determination and the grit to do it.
Have you switched things up at all over the last few months on what you normally would do just because maybe just COVID, for instance, is restricting some? As a podcaster, you're kind of okay
Mm-hmm.
unless you were having physical guests in your studio. But are you switching things up, doing something a little different just to keep you more active, um, your mind engaged? You mentioned reading things and listening things. Is there some specific things that you can suggest that would help someone who's they're restricted right now? As you said, if their job was tomorrow, if they could go back, they would be happy to do so. But in the meantime, they're sitting on the couch watching Netflix.
Yeah. I always look for the opportunity. I went through a period of reading and listening to podcasts and journaling. I did that. And you know what? That helped me for a period of time, but there came a point where you start to realize that just because you're doing those things doesn't mean you're actually doing anything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Reading
Like
about other
there's
people doing things.
I would much rather tell someone, like, go to page 158 of a
Yeah,
book called The Inner Game of Tennis, which is all about psychology. I want you to read 158, and then I want you to really think about it, and I want you to implement what that teaching is and do it right now. Like, that reading one page and doing is way better than
yeah,
reading. Doing is
absolutely.
way better than consuming. You can listen to so many podcasts in the world. It'd be a great day if there was no one listening to my podcast ever. I'd be out of a job, but it would mean people are starting to do something,
Doing something.
right? Like, you have to do. So for me, I always look at an opportunity. Even in COVID, it's like, okay, this sucks. My business took a hit, but like, how can I use this as an opportunity? What are some ways I can start to reinvent myself or reinvent my business to make this make sense for me and make this make sense for the people that visit my site and follow me?
What is the biggest innovation or a change that you had to do?
I went from, I think, realizing that I was a podcaster, and I would have called myself a freelancer. So I'm a marketing strategist. So I do some work here and there. I pickpocket, to where now I realize I need to focus on building a business. I need to build a business, because these are the things that stay when you go through these periods of
Yeah.
times. Like, these are constants, these are consistents. So that was important for me.
So with your say failures, but now more so successes, and the people that you deal with on a regular basis, what common thread do you see running through, including yourself, these people who have that drive to encourage people to, you can't give people motivation. I heard someone say
Mm.
today, someone's like, oh, you're not to me, but just about someone, you're my motivation. You need your own motivation. You can maybe get pumped up from someone else, or like going to golf or hockey and you have your
Yeah.
captain in the middle going huh, but he ain't my motivation to
Yeah.
to work hard. So what common thread have you seen through these people in the businesses that you deal with and yourself now, as you're even able to mold and shape in the circumstances?
Yeah, there's a bunch of cliches. I'll try to say this differently. They all have a goal line. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
Like, they know what they want.
Yep.
And I think it's, if you take sports for an example, if you're shooting a basketball or hitting a golf ball, you need to know where that golf ball is going to go. If you're throwing a ball, try closing your eyes, spinning around 5 times, and throwing a ball and hitting a mitt from someone who's 50 yards away from you. You may
Mm-hmm.
once every 1,000 times,
Mm-hmm.
but most of the time you're going to miss, and you're going to miss by a mile. And the difference is you don't know where that target is for yourself. So you have to understand, what do I want? What am I working towards? What is that goal line for me? And realize you're probably never going to hit that goal line, because you're always going to have new goals. You're always going to push that goal line back, but you have that in sight. And if you have that in sight, you can work towards it. You're moving in the right direction. You may take a left, right? You may take a left, but you're always going to get back in, because you have that like internal GPS of like, this is where I
This is
want to
where I'm
go.
going.
Even if there's a roadblock, even if I got in an accident, even if I have to stop for, 2
Couple
days
of
at a
years.
hotel,
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like you can always get back on that road, because you know what you're working towards. And
It's
they have that by in
like
miles.
people would be, and I would say honestly that I would be nervous listening to you for you to say you do what you do, you have millions of listens or downloads, or someone not in podcasting or not just like, oh, well, this guy's dealing with, he's in professional golf, or he deals with $1 million contracts or big business, or but what about me? I'm just a grocery store clerk, but it's applicable to all things, is it not?
Mm-hmm. I was that. I was serving tables, started a podcast. No one knew me. I reached out to 15 people that I thought were going to tell me, like, or not even respond to an email. And they got back and I booked it on. I'm like, oh my God, I have a podcast now. Now what do I do? But that
Yeah.
was all through just doing. I never had a thought of, oh, I need to get the perfect this or the perfect that, or like I need to have I didn't even have a podcast name. I was like, hey, Brian, starting a podcast. It's going to be about entrepreneurship. Love
Talk
for
to
you
you
to come
later.
on.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah. I'd be like, okay, awesome. Need a show name now. Need some equipment, like I need all these things,
Mm-hmm.
but it's, you just have to do it. Like just, and maybe you fail at it, but maybe you find something that you really love. But if you don't try anything, you're never going to know.
And
You're
that's the
never going to
thing,
know.
right? If you don't try anything and underscore anything, right?
Mm,
It's not an internet thing. It's not a, multi-million-dollar company thing. It's if you're doing a job that you don't like and you have a desire, a dream to do something else, or you really have checked out in the job you're doing, try something else.
totally.
Fix up your resume on paper, printed at your local library, spruce it up a little bit, and go walk the streets and do something different, because there's not much else to do.
There's people out there who chirp people who are on TikTok, and they're like, oh, they're so lucky. You know what? Like, take Charlie D'Amelio, has what, 70 million followers now,
Mm-hmm.
16, 17 years old. You think that was easy for a 15-year-old to put herself out there and dance in front of her friends in high school who she knew were going to laugh or
Yeah.
chirp behind her back or say
Mm-hmm.
stuff? She still did it. She executed. She did videos like 4 or 5 times a day. Like, if a 16-year-old can do it, like, you put stuff into perspective. Like, I can do that. And it
especially
doesn't
you're
have to be TikTok.
especially you're an adult and you
Yeah,
know the responsibilities that you have in life now. Like a
totally.
child who's 16 is like, I mean, as you have some have a good work ethic, and
Hmm.
they have a determination or motivation at a young age, but you would hope an adult would. And if they're stuck in a rut, you would hope that they have that motivation to get out and try something different.
You would hope. But it's difficult. I think it's difficult when you get older. It's like, how it's difficult to learn something new when you're older. Like, say you've never skated before, and it's like,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
put a 40-year-old on skates or a 5-year-old on skates. The 5-year-old will skate him all day because he's going to figure it out. He's got that kind of whatever it's happening in his brain at a young age. But even when you're 40, you're young. Like, I think that's what
Absolutely.
even Gary Vaynerchuk says. Like,
Mm-hmm.
when you're 50, you're young. You still have like 40, 50 years left. Like, you're only halfway through.
Yeah, we're not
So
talking
like,
about getting on skates. It won't be that dangerous. Just get out, just pass out your resume, go shake somebody's hand. People are nervous in the best of situations. As I said to you
totally.
at the beginning, yeah, oh, wow, I'm nervous. And you mentioned you were nervous when you did yours. It's People are going to be nervous in all of those sorts of situations. And it's not, and I actually got to interview my aunt yesterday,
Oh,
and
nice.
she never had the confidence, but she had the gusto for that first step. and she
Mm,
accomplished a many a things just because she put herself out there. And that's what we need to do, and that's what we need to encourage other people to do.
100%.
What
You just got to
just
go for it.
what is one of your most difficult things you had to face in your work experience? The most difficult thing that it almost knocked you out, it almost left you without hope.
Mm, I don't know if I've ever been left without hope, but I was working with my father and I started this podcast. And then there was a point where we both kind of realized that like we're going in different directions.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of separating from that
Yeah.
was probably the most difficult. But I would never say that I was ever left feeling hopeless. Like
Yeah.
I'm always an optimist.
Yeah.
Like I'm always someone who's just like, I'll bet on myself until I got nothing left. And when I have nothing, I'll still make the bet. Like I'll make a bet of $1,000 if I have $0 because I just believe I'm going to get it done. I believe it eventually it's going to go. And I think like that's from what I know, that's what you need.
I mean, what's the alternative, right? Never making the bet, never taking the risk, never trying and living. And that's what someone said. It was my aunt yesterday. Don't live with regrets.
Oh,
Just,
totally.
just do it. And it's better to know that you failed trying than it is to know that you never, ever took that chance.
And the people that are talking behind your back, whether they're family or friends, they're just the ones who don't do it. If you've talked to anyone who's done any, like who has tried something and built something from the ground up or at least attempted, they're the ones who are always going to be supporting you because they know how hard it is.
Absolutely.
It's so just realize that like it doesn't matter what Aunt Sally or Johnny Miller Lite over there says, like who cares? And it's difficult to do that, but like their judgment, they're going to say you suck at the beginning. And then when you make it, they're going to be like, I told you always make it. And then when you failed, they'd be like, I knew he was always going to fail. Like that's just realize who that person is.
There's always going to be them, either side of the
Well,
fence.
for sure.
What have you learned about work? What have you learned in your experience with dealing with the people that you have the pleasure of dealing with? What have you learned and gained respect? I mean, maybe you've always had respect for all professions, all job titles,
Mm-hmm.
but what have you gained a better appreciation for, or how has that built up through your life of people who work?
Like
Where some people
who,
don't have it. I mean, some people just, as you said, people who have more money, they don't. The seesaw going up and down people don't have it. Some people are bitter, angry,
mm-hmm.
disrespectful, and not courteous to any profession that is not theirs. But you don't seem like you're that guy.
No, I'm honestly not. I think that you could shovel shit. Like, good for you.
Yep,
Good for
absolutely.
you. You're doing what you need to do. You know, like you be a janitor, you can be an entrepreneur. I will never judge someone for what they do. It doesn't matter to me. It even doesn't matter how much money you make. The one thing that matters to me the most is that when I look you in the eye, I know that what you're telling me is true, that you're respectful, that you're helpful, you're courteous, and that you're polite. It doesn't matter if I have Bill Gates beside me. I'll tell you, Brian, it doesn't matter if I have whoever you want to say, Gary Vee beside me. If Gary Vee's a dick, like I don't know if people can see this, but like Gary Vee, get out of
Yeah.
here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you around here. I'd rather hang out with the dude who shovels for a living.
Absolutely.
I'll enjoy my time better with him.
And it's unfortunate that people would see the guy that's a dick, and they would rather be with him than the person who shovels.
Because they gotta look good to whatever their followers or their family, or they want to try to impress someone, or they want to try to do that. And hey, I fall into that trap too sometimes. Like I'm not perfect.
No, there's the temptation, right? That I think
For
that's always
sure.
whether it's money or fame or recognition, approval, it's the temptation, and it's not going to go away anytime soon.
No, take a situation. You're sitting there like I don't know if people know golf. So if I'm sitting there and I have like a young kid who knows me and who looks up to me, or Tiger Woods is beside me, like my attention is just naturally going to go to Tiger. It's
Absolutely.
not that I'm like rude to the kid. It's just like, that's like, oh my God, like look who it is. Like that, you're just naturally going to do that. But like that kid could also be Tiger in a few years. And like, if you treated him the same way you treated Tiger, when he gets to that level, or if he gets to that level, he will remember that forever. And you never know what opportunities he could put you in, what opportunities he put your kids in. Like stuff comes full circle. I'm just a big
Absolutely.
believer of that. I'm a big believer of don't judge people by where they are right now, ever.
I heard something. Be a person who gives second chances. Be all about second chances, and thirds and fourths. I mean, I need as many as possible. Give me some bogeys. Give me some mulligans. Sorry, I guess is the better.
To an extent, like I'm also like, as much as I'm that way, I'm also the way of like, if you're not in my family, if you cross me, like just
Yep.
go.
Yep.
I'm not going to give you a second shit. Like I have
Yep.
no time
Hmm.
for that.
Yep.
I'm going to move on to the people and the things that I want to do.
Yep.
Blinders.
Hmm.
So like I also believe
Yep.
in that. It's important to
Yep.
like,
Some boundaries and some borders and some rules and
or you just
guidelines.
always know, right? Like you always know. It's always in the back of your head. Whenever someone does something, it's like you're always going to know. And I've made those mistakes too, and I know people think the same thing about me. It's
Yeah.
they're always like, the opportunity, like always a little bit wary because of what you've done. Like
Yeah.
nothing in your past goes away.
Well, there is grace.
There
What
is.
what sort of where can they reach you? You mentioned at the beginning, but where can people find you, Colin?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. My website is colinmorgan.biz. You can learn about what I do, who I am there. If you wanted to follow me, Instagram, LinkedIn are the best ways to do that.
And in some final words, what is some advice do you have for why we work? And in closing, why do you work?
Do what you love. For me, do what you love. Do what you like. Find something that you're passionate about. If you don't know what that is, continuously to try things until you find it. Because if you try enough things, you will eventually find that one thing. As you listen to my story at the beginning about all the things that I tried so many different things. I failed at so many different things, but I would never have known if I wasn't good at it or I didn't love it until I did it. Don't knock something. Don't think something's too above or below you.
Below
Just
you.
give it a shot. Do it, and you'll find something that you love. And when you do, I promise you, you find something that you really enjoy doing. You'll see a transformation in yourself. You'll see a transformation in the other people around you because it's like an energy that becomes, and you start to like, wow, this is amazing. So find that one thing and keep working towards it.
Why would you also agree? Because I've heard this from people and it's similar, but I have this inner dialogue going on saying, but those people that find something, it may not be their job,
Mm-hmm.
right? They might have to grind it out really hard in their job, but it might be something outside of their job that they love to do, that they're able to balance that and keep it going. Because not all people everywhere are going to have full satisfaction in their job. Do you agree with that?
Uh, I do, and I got some great advice by David Meltzer once,
Okay.
and he said that his grandfather gave him this advice, and he said, "There's three things you need in your life. It's someone that you love because you're going to spend your life with that person.
Yep.
They're going to be beside you. You want to make sure that they support you and you support them. You love each other. Find something that you love to do."
Yep.
Because you're going to spend a third of your life working. So you might as well do something that you really enjoy doing, or else why is it worth it? And then find the best damn bed you can get because you spend a ton of time in that. So that's what you want to look for.
A few years ago, we got a brand new free king size bed
Oh,
in the
huge.
package, and we dragged it to South Korea with us, and we're working on that. We got all three. I think I got that. That's great advice. And in closing, why do you work? You mentioned it a few times, but in closing, Colin, why do you work specifically?
What?
I work. Why?
I work because I got to work.
And you do a good job. I mean,
You know,
you,
it might not be, yeah, it might not be a popular answer. Like, oh,
yeah,
like I want to do this. And we listen, we got to work.
we got to
Might as well
work.
do something you love. You might as well make a positive impact on the world. Try to do your best to be a good person. But I work because I got to work.
But it's the best answer that nowadays is overlooked because a lot of people
Yeah.
don't believe that. They don't believe they
Yeah.
got to work. It's the best answer.
Yeah. There you
Mixed
go.
in mixed in with some good nice motivations and other things. But Colin, I truly appreciate you coming on. You've been a great guest and you're very insightful, and I hope people go check out your podcast and follow you, and I hope to talk to you again.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Colin. Talk to you later. Bye. That's great, Colin.
Perfect.
You are a wise gentleman.
Thank you.